That's Nick Wright. First things first is the Lions have the second best roster in football. John, the team he had with the best roster in football will be opposite them on Saturday, the Kansas City Chiefs. And we've been having that discussion off air. We've brought it to the air. I agree, Kansas City, roster for roster, is better. They had a top 2 defense. They have an alien at quarterback. They're better on special teams. 3 of the top 10 players in the sport, according to the players themselves. While I think the Lions are right there at number 2, I know that will be unpopular to say they're not number 1. I would rather have Kansas City's roster.
I don't think it's unpopular.
Here in this city?
No, because I think people are fairly realistic, even though, yes, the Lions did beat them at the beginning of the season last year, and we wanted to see that rematch in the Super Bowl. I think people believe that this could be a Super Bowl championship team. Doesn't mean that it's always the best roster in football that wins the Super Bowl.
True.
So I think people are fairly realistic, and it sometimes, in my opinion, goes to how much weight do you put on
the quarterback?
Just simply Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. And if you're going to weight that as, hey, that's the reason, I get it.
And you should.
I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
But I also look at, and if it's just for this year, maybe that's one thing. But if you're looking down the road, I think the Lions are built to have a better run future years because Chris Jones, how many more years does he have at that level? How many more years does Travis Kelce have at that level? You look at the Lions roster, and you could start looking at all of the guys that are young, that are just entering that second contract or are just entering the possibility of a second contract that you want to re-sign. I think the Lions are looking pretty darn good. But I get it why Nick Wright would have them at 2 and Kansas City at 1. I know why you would have them, Kansas City at 1. I'm just talking about the possibility of looking at it with the future in mind. And then I also would look at, some of the other teams that are the threats to the Lions.
Right, we've talked about those.
And I'm not going to sit there and talk about the Packers or the Bears or anybody like this. When you look at the Eagles roster?
Yeah.
I think they are a team, and I don't remember where Nick Wright had them ranked. I think it was San Francisco was 3.
He had the Bears in his top 5. He's doing the weird Bears thing. I don't know, whatever.
There's some weird stuff going on with this whole Bears love.
Well, they're on Hard Knocks, and Caleb Williams, number 1 pick. I know, we've talked about it. Right. I don't see it the way other people see it.
But anyway, when you talk about the Eagles, Jalen Hurts at quarterback, Saquon Barkley in the backfield, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Paris Campbell, some talented receivers.
Top 5 O-line.
Probably top 3 O-line.
Mm-hmm.
And Dallas Goedert at tight end. Like, I'm not going to put him in, with Sam Laporta, but I think he's quality.
Top 12 at his position, maybe, something
and
like that.
And then defensively, you start to get into some of the argument regarding, yes, age is a factor, and Brandon Graham, all right, he's at the end of his career, but you have 2 defensive tackles in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. We talked a lot about Jalen Carter the last couple of years and, possibly being a Lion. Didn't work out that way. But they're a team that I think they don't compare to the Lions. I wouldn't swap rosters with them, but I think they're one of those teams when you start to think about the threats to the Lions. In the AFC, obviously, it's the Chiefs. In the NFC, I think it's the Eagles. When you start talking about depth and talent and the roster, along with the Niners, depth and talent and roster, but there's always that caveat of this is not just a one-off for the Lions because they are so young and all of their studs, all of their star players are young.
Ticket Texter says this whole conversation is traitorous. Why are we doing a hypothetical about what we can't have and don't want? Well, blame John Jansen. He's the one being traitorous. He brought this up.
Traitorous. You're the one that.
I actually think you brought this up so that I would say Kansas City has a better roster than the Lions, so people would judge me, even though it's the right take.
Can I ask a quick question? So you both have already agreed that the Eagles have a better roster than the Lions, or the Lions have a better roster than the Eagles.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Okay, make your point.
Well, because it isn't. O-line push, quarterback push, skill positions, the Eagles. Secondary, the Eagles. Defense, the Eagles.
Wait. Secondary, the Eagles. I mean,
they have Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox. They drafted 2 corners as well, and
Cooper DeJean
and Quinyon Mitchell.
But C.J. Gardner-Johnson can't stay healthy. He's not even healthy now.
Okay,
I would still say this is one where we'll let it play out and see what it actually is for the Lions. There's a lot of question marks. And I get right now why you're saying they have a more proven track record for some of their players. But if you're going to sit there and talk about their draft picks versus the Lions draft picks, I'd take the Lions draft picks right now.
I mean, look, there's no right answer here. I mean, Paul said it like it was fact. That's what made it funny there. I think the thing with the Eagles, Jalen Carter's going to determine a lot of what happens with them in the next couple of years. If he ends up being the player that people thought he's going to be, they're going to be a real problem for the Lions. They are.
They're getting some love on the ticket text. This one says, I think the Eagles actually have the shot to be the best roster in all of football. That's one of the ticket texts that we just got in. Another one says, guys, their biggest issue is their coaching staff. And in John's scenario where we're trading out coaching staffs, if you just plop the Eagles roster into a better coaching situation, that's the argument on the ticket text as well. 248-539-9797. Honestly, if we take the quarterback out of the equation, there's not a roster in the league I'd rather have over the Lions. Problem is, we can't take the quarterback off the roster.
Right.
Problem is, Mahomes is Michael Jordan, and you have to take him no matter who the rest of the roster is. So, yes, Kansas City would be the one roster that they would trade with the Lions.
I mean,
hard to fault that.
It is hard to fault that. I mean, that's why I wanted to have the discussion, because I wanted to hear from people, where do you believe the Lions are